Shalom, welcome to Rob on the Rock. I'm Rob Van Hoff, and today we're going to look at the end of Exodus 40 in a beautiful medieval manuscript. And I'll read it in English first from the NASB. We're going to be looking at Exodus 40 from the end of verse 33 to the end of the book. First in English, and then we'll go through it in Hebrew. Thus Moses finished the work. That is, the work of building the Mishkan, building the Tabernacle. When the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle, Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud had settled on it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the sons of Israel would set out. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out until the day when it was taken up. For throughout all their journeys, the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and there was fire in it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel. So this is the last page of Exodus in the Washington Pentateuch, starting with about chapter 40, verse 33, the end of it. Let's read this together. Vaychal Moshe et hamelacha. Vaychal Moshe et hamelacha. And Moses completed the work. Vaychas he'anan et ohel moed. Ukvod Adonai male et hamishkan. And the Anan, that is the cloud, covered the Ohel Moed. So the Ohel Moed is the tent of meeting. Ukvod Adonai male et hamishkan, that is, and the glory of the Lord fills the Mishkan, that is the tabernacle. Velo yachol Moshe lavo el ohel moed, ki shachan alav he'anan, ukvod Adonai male et hamishkan. Velo yachol Moshe lavo is, and Moshe was not able lavo, to enter into the ohel moed, and Moses was not able to enter into the tent of meeting. Ki shachan alav, because shachan, it dwelled, or it resided. That is the Anan. Ki shachan alav he'anan, because the cloud rested. This is that word shachan, dwelled in it or rested upon it. Or it's where we get the word tabernacle, Mishkan, tabernacled upon it. Ukvod Adonai male et hamishkan. We have an intensifier, a repetition of the end of the previous verse, where it says, and the glory of the Lord fills the Mishkan. Uvhe'alot he'anan me'al hamishkan yis'u b'nei Yisrael. B'chol masehem. This says, and when the Anan, when the cloud was lifted up, me'al hamishkan, from upon the Mishkan, yis'u b'nei Yisrael, the children of Israel would set out, or would journey, b'chol masehem, in all their journeys. Ve'im lo ye'aleh he'anan, but if the cloud would not lift up, or when the cloud would not lift up, lo yis'u ad yom he'aloto, they would not journey out until the day it would go up, that is, the cloud would go up. Ki anan Adonai al hamishkan yomam, for the Anan of Adonai, that is the cloud of the Lord, al hamishkan yomam, upon the tabernacle daily, yomam, by day. You might remember from Psalm 1, it says he meditates on the Torah of Adonai yomam, daily, yomam v'layla. We have a yomam and laila here. It says, Ki anan Adonai al hamishkan yomam, for the cloud of the Lord was upon the Mishkan yomam, by day. Ve'esh, and the fire, I have to go up here, Tihyeh laila bo, and the fire would be on it laila, by night. Le'enei chol Beit Yisrael, in the eyes of all the house of Israel, B'kol masehem, in all their journeys. Now, if you go and look, for example, at Numbers chapter 33, you will see where Moses records all the different maseh, all the different journeys of the children of Israel. And all these spots along the way were led, of course, by the Holy Spirit, by the setting down, the resting of the cloud, or the taking up of the cloud. So Israel did not go out except by the guidance of God, with the direction being indicated by the cloud, by what is called the Anan. You can see the beautiful handwriting and how the scribes wanted to finish the book of Exodus on the same line. So they stretched this last verse all the way. And I'll show you a nice example of a scribal note. Here it says, Beit Yisrael. And you see there's a little, what we call a circle here. And that points us to this note here. And it's a letter Dalet with a dot above it, and then a bet, and then a tav with a dot. And what this means is 4 times in the Torah. Dalet batorah. So the tav here with the dot stands for the word Torah. The Dalet with the dot stands for the number 4. Dalet batorah. 4 times in the Torah do we have Beit Yisrael. Beit Yisrael. And if we go all the way to the top of our Masorah note here, it tells us Beit Yisrael, Dalet Bator, and it's got the line above it. This tells us 4 times Batorah. And then it has our catchphrases for each of those verses. The first is Vayikra'u, Beit Yisrael, I think it's Et Shemo Man. They called it, the house of Israel called its name manna when they named the manna from Exodus. That's the first verse where we see Beit Yisrael of these 4. Then we see Ki anan Adonai al hamishkan. That's the verse we just read here at the last verse of Exodus. And then we have Yivchu et hasrefa, and the children of Israel, this is where it says they wept concerning the burning. I think it's Leviticus 10. It has to do with the strange fire that the sons of Aaron brought. And this is when they're mourning. And then it says, Vayiru kol ha'edah. And all the Edah, the community, saw that Aaron had died. And that, I think, is in the book of Numbers. So there's 4 times in the Torah, this note tells us that Beit Yisrael, stand alone. There's times where you'll have a mem in front of it, like mi beit, from the house of Israel. But when it's just stand alone, Beit Yisrael, there's only 4 times in the Torah. And what you see here is the Masorah Gdolah, that's this upper note here, that gives the certain phrase, Beit Yisrael, how many times it occurs, where, in this case, Ba Torah, and then 4 little catchphrases, each according to the verse. Now remember, there's no chapter or verses here back 1,000 years ago. That's the Masorah Gedolah. What we see here, this tiny little initial note with the Beit Yisrael, with the circle and the marginal note here on the side, Dalet Batorah, is super shorthand, as you can see, but that is indicating the same note in shorthand. And this is Masorah Ktana. Masorah Ktana, which means the small Masorah. So we have, sometimes you'll see a small Masorah note like this that will point you to a Gedolah note. Not all the time. There's another down here. I'll show you another. See, it says Ki Anan Adonai, and we see the dalet here, or for the word Anan, pardon me. And we go down here, and it says Anan, and then it has a dalet, and there's 4 times that the word Anan occurs. So what I'll do here, I just want to back out so you can see this page one more time. It's quite beautiful how they finished the book of Shemot on the same line here by stretching out that last few verses, or the last few words of that last verse. I wanted to do this because this is from this week's Torah portion where we end the book of Shemot, and next week we begin the book of Vayikra. Shalom.